Hi, in this video, we're going to be talking about inverse functions for grade 9 and 10 math. So firstly, what is inverse functions? So basically, to say it in the most simplistic words, it's like the opposite or the reverse to get back to the original function. This might sound complicated, so let's think of it graphically. So when you have like a graph here, maybe it looks like this. To get the inverse, you have to draw a line through x equals y, and you have to reflect it over this line. So now we're gonna basically reflect it like that. That would be the inverse of this graph. Let's go through some notation first of all. So if one function is called f of x, the inverse would be f negative 1 x. It would be the same with any different letter. So if it's g of x, it can also be written as g negative x for the inverse. Okay, so how do we find the inverse? Not graphically, because this is how you do it graphically, but how do you do it algebraically? So let's look at the question on the side over here. So if f of x is 2 over x plus 1 minus 3, you first want to copy that down. Plus 1 minus 3. From this step, the first step, I would then switch x and y. I would do this in the first step. So now you're going to have to rewrite it by switching x and y. Plus 1 minus 3. So now the second step is to get the y back to its original place. So you have to rearrange and manipulate the equation. So first of all, I'm going to move the 3 over to the other side. So x plus 3 equals 2y plus 1. And now I see the only way I'm going to get rid of this fraction is to cross multiply like this. So that's what I'm going to do. X plus 3 and y plus 1 equals 2. So now I want to isolate the y. So I have to divide x plus 3 from both sides. So it's y plus 1. You still have that. And you divide it over onto this side. And then now, the only step remaining is to move the 1 to the other side to make it negative 1. So from this function, this is fx, this is fx, and then this is f to the inverse of x. So in the final answer, you would write this. Usually from here, various follow-up questions would be like, what is f of x if you substitute 2 inside? So from here, you would have to write y equals 2, and you have to substitute the 2 inside the x. 2 plus 3 minus 1. So that would be like that, and you would go on to simplify that. If they do, however, do this kind of follow-up question, equals 5, now you have to substitute this into the y value. So 5 equals 2x plus 3 minus 1, and you would go solve for x. So before we end, I'm going to go through quite a niche topic, but it will get tested sometimes. And that question is, why doesn't a quadratic function have an inverse? So let's draw it out first. So let's draw a quadratic formula. A quadratic graph, it's basically a many-to-one function. So for one y value, there'll be 2 x values, and that just doesn't work some of the time. So if you try to reflect it over the line x equals y, it will intersect sometimes. It's quite messy. So the thing about it, if they ask you for a quadratic function to have an inverse, you need to have a restricted domain. So you may want to ask, what is a domain? Basically, that's all the x values in a kind of inequality. So if we draw it out, this is a normal y equals x squared function. For this function to have an inverse, then you would need the domain to be, let's just write this out in the proper notation, x has to be greater than 0 or equals to 0. So that would mean that this part would not be included. It would not be included, and you would only look at this part and reflect this one. So then if you draw the line, it would be over here and does not intersect with itself.